When an avoidant has their fears triggered, they do what is called deactivation. Deactivation is when they take their feelings, they take their emotions, they stuff them, they bury them, they suppress them, they don't process their feelings, and they run from problems. This is why they are called avoidants. These fears are the fears of abandonment, rejection, and engulfment. The fear of engulfment actually ties into the fear of abandonment because they fear losing themselves in a relationship to somebody who's ultimately going to abandon and reject them. So deactivation is the way they keep themselves safe, by avoiding painful emotions, by avoiding self-reflection, and avoiding the problems altogether. When they're triggered in a relationship, part of this deactivation includes pushing a partner away, creating emotional distance. Because when emotional intimacy builds, that is what triggers these fears. That's what triggers the fears of abandonment, rejection, and engulfment. It all goes back to childhood when the avoidant was emotionally neglected by their parents or caretakers. This is a person that learned that emotional intimacy, emotional closeness leads to abandonment. That is why growing and building emotional intimacy in a relationship in a healthy way is precisely what triggers their fears, because they fear as you get closer, you're going to figure out you're too good for them and you're going to reject and abandon them. Ways that they can create emotional distance, it does include discarding a partner and running away from the relationship altogether, but they can still do deactivation strategies to create that distance while they're still in the relationship. Cheating is a very common deactivation strategy. It's hard to be truly emotionally intimate with a partner that you're cheating on. When you're betraying this person, it kills off emotional intimacy. Gaslighting, creating tension in the relationship, another way to create emotional distance. Fault finding in a partner, looking for any tiny little fault in your partner, criticizing them for it, and convincing yourself that they're not good enough, that this won't work. When you're constantly nitpicking somebody, when you're criticizing them, it's hard to create emotional intimacy while you're doing that. It's a method to push someone away. Ghosting is another thing that they'll do, just disappearing for days. Hard to be emotionally intimate with somebody that is not replying to you. It helps them feel safe. It keeps that emotional distance. Now, stonewalling is another common deactivation strategy. When they're just stonewalling you, hard to be emotionally intimate with the person doing that. They're just essentially giving you nothing. So these are different common strategies for the avoidant to deactivate. So when they are doing this behavior, it is because that they are trying to keep you at an emotional distance to keep themselves safe. They feel unsafe when you're getting too close. They feel like they're going to be hurt. So it's better to hurt you. It's better to keep you away from them rather than risk them having their heart broken by you. Because in the avoidant's mind, heartbreak is inevitable if you let someone in behind that castle wall that they built around their heart. So when your avoidant or your avoidant partner has seemingly become a different person in the relationship, understand what they're doing is they're trying to keep themselves safe. It's in a maladaptive way that's unhealthy for both them and you, but they're trying to protect themselves in a very hurtful way, in a very selfish way. Because when they are doing these behaviors, they're only thinking of themselves. They are only thinking of their own perceived wants, needs, and feelings in the moment. And they're not considering how this impacts you. And part of this is due to the fact that avoidance also avoids self-reflection, because self-reflection is the polar opposite of avoiding. Don't blame yourself for these kinds of behaviors. And it is a perfect opportunity to hold and enforce boundaries, because you don't deserve to be treated that way. And it is perfectly healthy to say no and stand up for yourself and enforce those boundaries. Enforcing a boundary doesn't necessarily mean that you have to break up, but it could. That's certainly up to you. But when you hold and enforce healthy boundaries, you are telling yourself the message that it's not okay to treat me this way. And that is a very powerful thing to tell yourself. When you allow them to mistreat you, when you allow these deactivation strategies to continue and you don't hold any boundaries, You're sending yourself the message that you don't have your own back, that you can't rely on yourself to stand up for your own wants and needs, and that it's okay to treat you this way. That pushes you further into insecurity and anxiety. So be kind to yourself. Recognize that this behavior is not your fault, and also recognize that you don't have to accept that behavior, and holding a boundary is not a selfish thing to do. It is an act of self-compassion, and it's an act of compassion for the avoidant because you're no longer enabling that behavior when you hold a boundary.